Hi, everyone. It's Jonathan Shapiro. I want to share with you a little bit more about choosing a topic. It'll be a short video, but there are some misconceptions out there about topics, and I'll share a slide with you and just talk a little bit about it. The main point that I want to make is choose something you want to write about. Don't worry too much about what you think colleges want to hear about you. That can be problematic because it takes away from what do you really want to say. And then that affects the writing because you're kind of going back and forth. You go, well, I want to say this, but do they really want to hear that? And it can get very complicated and add a lot of stress to the writing and make this process more arduous than it needs to be. If you're excited to share about yourself, if you're excited to let people know, or maybe even not excited, but you care about the topic because it's reflective, something's important to you, then that will make the writing flow much more. You'll be enthused and it'll have its own energy, and that'll get reflected in the voice and the language that you use to generate your essay. And I'm going to share a slide now, just with some other kind of do's and don'ts that might be helpful. So in this slide, I'm going to see if I can make it bigger. I have do nots and I have do's. So do not write about what you think you should write about. That's what I just spoke to, and I think that's important. It's not to say to be naive, and it's not to ignore the audience or the import of what these essays are, but it is from a way to think about how to honor yourself and your experiences. Writing generically means writing broadly, blandly, very non-specific. And that is not going to move people. So if you're writing about, say in school, if you're writing about Romeo and Juliet, and you say, Romeo and Juliet are lovers who, because of society's pressures, makes it impossible for them to be happy. While accurate, doesn't tell us much about what you think and feel about, in this case, the topic of Romeo and Juliet. It's more a description. It's really generic or broad description of what happened. Now, these essays are vital, a vital tool for you to express yourself and what you think and feel. So when you write specifically and you identify the particulars, then you're no longer writing generically. So, for example, a lot of people have ADHD, and broadly you could say, well, I need more time, and then you could talk about how you got diagnosed, how one got diagnosed, and then through medication and counseling and learning time management, they became much more confident and their grades improved, etc. Now that's fairly generic, it's broad. We don't learn anything specific about that student. So if you, for example, or a student, call the student Joe, if Joe's writing about his experience with ADHD and how he became more focused over time and learned skills, he needs to identify, well, initially when taking, doing this kind of homework, and he would name it, he would say specifically what the issue is. If you, started at 8 p.m. and it was 10 p.m., you're still struggling, and his mind would flit to this and that, and you could even say this or that, like to watch the NBA or pay more attention to the baseball score, whatever it is. But by adding specifics, you are helping people get to know you, and then you are not generic. So the key in choosing a topic is once you get into it, you need to not be generic. So in a way, this choosing a topic, what I'm talking about now is when you're writing about the topic. So you can have a generic topic, let's say ADHD, but once you start talking about your particular experience, it's unique. Another do not, which I recommend, is if you have a difficult issue you want to write about, then you can write about it if you're comfortable with it. I've had people who written about alcoholic parents, their own body image issues, their ADHD. People wrote very passionately about becoming, feeling better about themselves with some of these issues. So I would not rule out anything in the beginning, especially what I think is the most important thing is are you comfortable writing about it? If you're comfortable writing about it, 99% it'll be pertinent and appropriate. So, obviously you don't want to be, you want to choose language that's not offensive, but you can choose a topic that's difficult and make people really care about what you have to say and care about you. This one, write about childhood only, don't write about childhood only. That's a good one because you don't want to be staying in your childhood experience. You want to show your maturation. So some students I've helped, they want to write about a young experience they've had. Like I had a student who, he had problems feeling confident with talking in front of his classmates. But that was back in elementary school. He didn't show anything more from that. So then the colleges aren't going to get a chance to understand how he is as a young adult, as an adolescent. So you don't want to just stay in childhood time. You can relate to something that happened in your childhood and then talk about it from a more mature perspective. So I helped a student. She was interested in being a newspaper person, and she was interested in being a reporter. And that interest first showed up for her in like second grade. But she didn't stay in that second grade time. She showed how that her passion developed. And by the time she was a junior in high school, she had written articles on local politics and showed a very mature perspective, a mature experience. Don't be disingenuous. By this, be straightforward. A student was looking to hire me. I was talking to the student, and he tells me he performed medical operations. I was kind of dubious, and he was not representing himself accurately. And that I didn't appreciate. I don't think colleges would appreciate that. You don't need to brag, or you don't need to distort. He was distorting. He actually had done some experience, done some surgery in a classroom on, I think it was, some lab animals. But he was presenting that in a way as if he was almost a medical doctor, and that's just not cool. But the important thing I want you to take away from is that your experiences are valid. You don't need to distort them. If you show them in a way that's genuine, then that's going to score you many points. Lastly, don't overthink too much. I know this is a high stakes essay, but if you relax into it, you can have a lot of fun, be very effective. In the do's, do trust yourself, take some risks. That means if you're scared to share something, it might be worth taking that risk and saying, well, you know what, that's okay. I can be a little vulnerable. If it's too uncomfortable, don't write about it. You don't need to put your hand in the fan. Do explore and dive. Remember, this is inner. This is not so much about what happens outwardly, but how you react to it. Think about it, reflect on it, what it means to you internally. Do be specific in name, so it's not generic. And develop your thinking, sharing, reflect, show sophistication. In other words, let yourself write about your thinking and feelings about whatever experience, which I call commentary in other videos. Let yourself comment, and not just one or two sentences, but really develop it. That shows you're ready for the higher intellectual reflective work that colleges will ask of you. Okay, hope this was helpful. Have a great day.